Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg from the Sales Pro Network here with another great Facebook Live. As many of you know, I founded the Sales Pro Network to be a place where salespeople can come and share their successes, their failures, their challenges, ask questions, and get coaching by fantastic experts like the person we're going to speak with today, and really a place to elevate the profession of sales. And I think you'd have a hard time disagreeing with the fact that we've had some fantastic guests. And today is going to be no different, I promise you. I actually don't remember when I first found Brynne, but I'd like to introduce you all right now to the fantastic Brynne Tillman. Good morning, Brynne.
Hi, Jeff. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. This is so much fun. And I think we met through Beth Granger.
Well, actually, I'm not actually talking about when we met. I've been following Brynne. Brynne is a social sales expert. And when I say expert, I mean truly an expert. And I've been following her on LinkedIn for, it seems like forever. I don't think this is the first thing, but the first thing I remember was Brynne offering great advice. You'll see she's incredibly generous with her advice. She was talking about the importance of making your background something different, for your header, something different than the standard one. She gave step-by-step instructions on how to do it. And mine doesn't look terrific, but it is not the standard one. And I first came across her then, and I was like, I just got to follow everything this woman says, because everything that Brynne says makes perfect sense and is designed to help you be more successful by using LinkedIn and social selling. So I can't wait to get going, and we're going to do that right now. Brynne, would you start out by maybe just telling us a little bit about your background and how you got to be who you are and what brought you to social selling?
Oh my gosh, that's how I got to be who I am today. That's a deep question, or shallow, depending on how you see me. But I've actually always been in sales and sales training, and I'm really a recovering sales trainer in a lot of ways, where I had years of, even from my jobs, I was the ride along. I'll go ride along with Brynne and watch what she's doing. Go listen in on her calls, and so and a lot of my success came from, I just was interested in what my client had to say. And people, well, what did you do that was so different? I was really interested. I wanted to learn about them. And so I loved sales and I loved sales training. And then LinkedIn came along and I was absolutely in love with it because it solved my biggest problem, which was the one thing you still had to do in sales back a couple of decades ago is cold call. And it was the only thing I did not like about sales. It just seemed like an awful lot of hamster wheel activity that paid off very little, but you still had to do it. And so when I saw LinkedIn, I went, this solves the major problem, which is, how do I get more client referrals? In 92, when I was in the field for the first time, I recall sitting across from a client staring at his Rolodex. I don't know if you still have a Rolodex, or it's funny nowadays I tell this story and there's half the audience doesn't even know what a Rolodex is. But thinking if I could get my hands on that Rolodex, I could see who he knew, that I could ask for introductions. I wouldn't have to cold call, because I was always asking referrals, but they were always like, I can't think of anyone right now, but if someone should ask, I'd be happy to refer you. Now I think, man, I'd have control over knowing who he knew. That's what LinkedIn is. And when I saw that, I said, this is all I want to do for the rest of my life, professionally anyway, is I want to help people leverage this incredible tool to get client referrals, introductions from networking partners. And so it really came out of, it solved the only piece that I didn't love about sales, this solved. And so now it's like my favorite thing in the world. So that was a long way around how I got here, but I'm here.
Brilliant. You might have noticed I was giggling a little bit, and that's because while cold calling is still my favorite thing to teach, it's not as effective as it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. But I still believe if you do it properly, it works. But while it's my favorite thing to teach, because I can teach it today and you can do it tomorrow and immediately get appointments. But I hate doing it myself. In fact, I often say, I'd rather live in my car than ever have to pick up the phone and go, hey, do you need some sales training or coaching today? It's a little more eloquent than that, but I just don't want to do it because it's massive rejection. And I think there are better ways. I think it should be a part of every salesperson's arsenal, but I believe in a blended approach, but it's just totally painful. Some people are saying hello. Keith Ginsburg said, Brynne rocks. Sarah Green says hello from the United Kingdom. Beth Granger is here saying hello, my friends. We've got some great people listening in. So what's the difference, Brynne? What's the difference between selling and social selling?
So, the difference is the tools and the platforms that we use to do the same work. So, if you look at social in terms of social media versus social as I'm out and I'm a social person, the difference is we're really using LinkedIn and other platforms. I tend to primarily use LinkedIn, but there are lots of platforms to be a social seller. It's how are we attracting, teaching, and engaging our buyers using social media platforms that convert to sales conversations, right? And it's funny you say, I love conversations, and I don't even have phone conversations. They're all Zoom now, which is amazing. And everyone is used to and comfortable with it now. So I've been doing it for years, but now so I'm actually rarely on the phone, but I'm having 5 to 7 meaningful conversations a day, 15-minute calls, maybe 3 to 5, let's say, a day, that are being scheduled because I've engaged someone on LinkedIn, or I've gotten a referral from a client because I identified that they knew someone, and got permission to either drop their name to get a call. So I'm scheduling conversations all day long. So I want to make it clear that unless you're selling a $1.99 widget that they can click and buy, we have to have conversations. So to be a successful social seller, the goal has to be sales conversations. But how you get to it is using social media. In the world, 4 or 5 months ago, we built relationships at Chamber of Commerce meetings, at networking meetings, at trade shows, at conferences. And we'd meet people and we'd share, just kind of niceties, and we get to know each other. At one point, we would want to learn about what each other did. And it was this normal way of selling and building relationships. Today, we don't have those channels. So social selling now is absolutely vital for anyone that used to do that. But the key to doing it well is treat that person the same way you would treat them as if you met them in person, because they're the same person. They just happen to be on the other side of the computer.
Yeah, I'm pretty stunned by the large number of people who keep saying they're zoomed out. I personally love it like you do. I would much rather see somebody when I'm speaking with them rather than just speaking on the phone. I often say that in the hierarchy of sales, there's nothing that beats a face-to-face meeting. But after that, it's video. Look, if we're talking on the phone, I have no idea if you're writing an email while I'm chatting with you or eating your lunch or doing whatever you do, but you and I can be engaged right now, actually looking each other in the eye, just like we would face to face. And while I can't see your whole body and read all your body language, at least I can see your expression.
Yeah.
And Brynne, we want to see the whole deal. But yeah, I'm a big fan. And I'm also a fan of the other thing you just said about conversations. Because my definition of selling, most people think that sales is about convincing and persuading and talking people into things. But my definition is very simple. Sales is just a conversation or a series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you. So you're 100% right. It's just all about how do we have many conversations, because Jason Kaminsky said activity is the key to success, and it's certainly one of them. And how do we have better conversations, more meaningful conversations that do result in a certain number of people saying, you know what, I need some of what Brynne has, or I need some of what Jeff's offering, or whatever, whoever it is. So what is the social selling philosophy?
So there's no standard philosophy, but we have a very strong philosophy. And really it's make sure that you are showing up with empathy. You're willing to listen. You're willing to provide insights and bring value to every interaction, and detach from the end result of making the sale and attach to strengthening a relationship and helping them solve problems. The sale will happen when the time is right. So if you can do that, and that your whole goal is to bring value, whether you're the solution or you introduce them to the solution, or maybe you just give them some ideas and they can run off and do it on their own. You cannot be attached to your goal at every interaction, or you're going to lead them to your path versus the path they should be on. And our job is to help them through their journey, not give them a destination and then figure out how to get there so that we get paid. And so if you can kind of come from that, so we have to stop like, this is what you need really quickly, and say, let's talk about where are your challenges? What are your goals? Where are your gaps? And then help them and lead them to a solution that's right for them. And if you happen to be part of that solution, the sale will happen.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar said, stop selling and start helping. That's exactly what you're saying. You may notice I keep grinning. It's because every word that comes out of your mouth sounds like something that I say all the time. It's just, I often say that there's not a heck of a lot of difference between sales training methodologies. We're all pretty much saying the same thing. It's just different words, but every word that comes out of your mouth is like, didn't I say that recently? So
I love alignment.
You love what?
I love alignment. That's
yeah,
always, it's
exactly.
great. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
and that come from of truly trying to serve somebody.
Yes.
And I like what you said, detaching from the end. Obviously, we all need to close business. That's how we make a living. But if our intention is to help someone rather than just to close business, then the business is going to close, or at least enough business should close. And when we're trying to sell, I say that clients can smell need and greed like dogs smell fear. And it's really part of what I call not going in arrogant, like somebody with your experience or my experience, we can pretty much walk into just about any situation. Go, oh, I know exactly what's going on for you. Here's your problems. Let me tell you how we're going to solve them. And we'd most likely be right, but I call that going in arrogant because I don't know about you, Brynne, but I'm going to guess that it's about the same. Almost every client, every prospect I've ever spoken with at some point during a first meeting says this, Jeff, I know you've been doing this a long time, but we're different.
I know.
And the truth is, they're not really very different. I mean, is there a difference between selling sales training and selling air conditioners? Sure. Or selling load balancers. I have a client that does that. There's a slight difference, but you still have to make friends with people, be interested and curious in them, ask a bunch of questions, gather information, make a presentation based on the 4 elements of any good presentation, probably negotiate, ask for their business, handle objections. It's all the same thing. It's really just we're saying it slightly differently.
Yeah. So 2 things I want to say before I forget one of them. Clients can smell the sale, right? Larry Levine, who's Selling from the Heart guy, it's amazing, calls it commission breath. Isn't that great?
I'm actually writing it down. It's brilliant.
That's one of my favorite things. They can smell your commission breath. The other piece to this, and yes, we do have to bring it down and guide the sale. But he said Zig Ziglar said, say his quote again, because it's
stop selling, start helping.
Okay, so I actually say stop telling. I must have been inspired by it and didn't realize. Stop telling people how you can help them and simply help them. So one of the biggest problems, particularly that I see on LinkedIn, but I think it's across the board, is we help companies just like you. How do you know? You haven't talked to me. And right now, my perception is we're different. So as soon as I say, nope, you don't help companies like me because we're different, even if they're not, you've already isolated yourself from them because they're like, she doesn't get me. So stop telling them how you can help them. Don't get on a first call and do a demo or a pitch. Learn about them. But here's the key. So, good salespeople are good listeners. I mean, we've heard this for a very long time, but you have to be good askers and listen to the right thing and guide the questions the right way. And you have to drop little mini brilliant insights between each discovery question. So you ask a question, we do this right in LinkedIn. So I'm talking about this, I guess, almost like a sales trainer mindset, but really this is how we engage on LinkedIn. And this is because, but you ask a question, you get an answer, you provide an insight. That's how they test drive you, right? They get to test you through that. So that discovery call is not just for you to gain knowledge, but it's also for them to experience how working with you might feel.
Sure. And so it's being generous with your, I call it sharing your brilliance. Again, I just keep hearing me coming out of you. It's sales is really about asking the right questions. The key to being an effective seller is being a great interviewer. Mm-hmm. And that means you do have to be curious or act like you're curious. You've got to be listening actively, and you've got to tell good stories. And that's exactly what you're saying. You've got to be sharing information that shows them, here's how I'm going to help. I laughed before because my brief commercial used to say, oh, we work with companies like yours to help you get more appointments with decision makers, shorten your sales cycle, and close more business more profitably. And I changed it to Jeff Goldberg and Associates. We help companies get measurable and sustainable sales increases. Not your company, but we do it with all companies. And the truth is, you said it again, I don't really know that I can help somebody until I meet with them and find out what their situation is. Now, fortunately, you and I are in a business where we rarely run into somebody who doesn't need our help. In the last 16 years, I think I've gone on 2 sales calls where I said, you know what, you're doing everything right. I can't believe you took this appointment because you're doing, I've got nothing to add to you. I wish I did, but you don't need me. But because mostly, in my opinion, other than the people in this group, most salespeople suck at their jobs. They just were never properly trained. They don't treat it like a career. They don't study. Every time I go to my doctor, he's got books on his desk. And I like that. I like that he's always learning. My lawyers are always learning. We need to also. I read most of the sales books that come out. I still go to listen to other people speak because you never know I don't have all the answers. I've got a bunch, but I don't have all the answers. And that's why I love experts like you because I'm constantly learning. So tell me about how does somebody initiate the sales process properly on LinkedIn? So let's say I've targeted a company. I say, oh, this is a company I absolutely want to work with. How would I initiate that contact and start making what I want to happen, which is to have some great conversations?
So, there are a couple of things that have to happen before I jump into that. One is your profile needs to be positioned so that you're showing up as a resource, because any outreach that you're making is going to lead to profile views.
So that was a later question. So yes, let's talk about profile.
I guess I just want to foundationally set it up. But the problem is most profiles are either a resume, and quite honestly, your prospect does not care if you've won President's Club. They don't care if in fact, it hurts you if you say you're the best negotiator, because your client doesn't want to work with a great negotiator. They want the worst negotiator. So, we have to look at the profile from the standpoint as this is your marketing landing page, and it's got to convert for you. So if we want more conversations, our profile has to be positioned as a resource. And that means we can't constantly just tell them how we can help them. They have to read this and have aha moments. So right before this call, I was talking with a guy who's merchant services, right? And he talked about everyone's overpaying, everyone's doing this. I said, you need to tell them how to go read their statement to see if they're overpaying. Your profile is helping not only you qualify if this is someone that's good for you, but now they have an aha moment because you became a very significant resource in the fact that you just highlighted something they had no idea that they were overpaying in fees, right? All that stuff. So that's where you want a position to be a resource. So as you're doing the outreach to this company that you've identified that you want to engage, they're going to do their due diligence. So when you reach out, you have to make sure you're positioned the right way. Number one. Number two, try to have at least one piece of evergreen original content that's brilliant, so that when they get there and they see this piece of content, you need to create curiosity and get them thinking differently in order to get a phone call. Period. If you cannot create curiosity and get them thinking differently, they don't have time to talk to you. So it has to be a compelling reason, and we have to prove it pretty early on. Okay, that's foundational. We've got that piece.
And Brynne, you're talking about having an article or a video on your LinkedIn
profile right on the profile.
Here's how I'm going to help. Here's what
well, so not here's how I'm going to help. That's, I think, where people make a problem. You actually have to help. It's got to be more blog post like. It's got to be more resource driven, not a sales pitch, not here's how we help companies like yours. It's got to be actionable for them. We call it vendor agnostic content, meaning they don't have to use you to get value from it, right? So that's the foundation. Now we've identified ABC company. I want to get into ABC company. They're high on my list.
Hang on, before we get to that, there is something more on the profile that I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Recommendations and endorsements. What's the feeling on those?
So endorsements are fine. Make sure you have your keywords there. I like endorsements from the other position. I like to give endorsements because it's a way to engage with someone and make them feel good. And then it automatically will pre-populate a message for them to start a conversation with me, thanking me for that endorsement. And it's just a great entryway into a conversation. So make sure you've got them. Other than that, endorsements are really meant for recruiters to find you. I mean, skills. Recommendations, however, is some of the most powerful social proof that you can have across the board. So I just closed a really nice deal that I absolutely worked hard for. And they were shopping. And rarely do I get folks that are shopping. They came in recommended. I did not proactively go out to get them. And they were looking at 3 companies. I was one of them. And initially thought potentially an underdog because it's a gigantic company and they were looking at bigger options, bigger companies. We are 4 people and they're a Fortune 500 company. So I thought that I faced that before, but I thought there was some little, so in talking, I was getting this, I'm not sure if we want to go with a smaller company, if it makes sense. So I said, we've worked with Aramark and Comcast and McKesson. Go look at my recommendations from Aramark and Comcast and McKesson, and Welldine and some of these really big companies that we've worked with. Go look through my recommendations, see what we've been able to do for them, and if you want to have a conversation with them, let me know. I'll connect you. And they came out of reading my recommendations, going, "You're hired." That's it. I mean, it just crazy. They didn't have to talk to them. They clicked through. They clearly saw this person is who recommended this. And like that. So the recommendations were what gave me the competitive edge. Now, did my competitors have recommendations? Maybe, but they didn't drive them there. I did. And I'm purposefully making sure that I'm getting these recommendations from my clients that are really happy with the results. And they're measurable results. We have one client that closed a $1.5 million account based on the warm market tactics that we taught her fast during the pandemic, right? I'm like, can I get it in a recommendation on LinkedIn? Absolutely. So they are absolutely vital.
And we should be proactive about asking for them, yes?
Yeah, so we want 5 things from every client. So the first thing we want is more business. The second thing we want are internal introductions, right? Who inside the company would also benefit from working with us. Then we want external connections, and that's where we are most successful. I mean, we're pretty good with the internal introductions in helping them map that out. But where people struggle the most in business development are the external referrals. We ask for referrals. We don't get them typically. We proactively help people get those. Next are vendor introductions. So, who else are they buying from that we could build a referral partnership with? And then case studies, testimonials, recommendations. Those are the 5 major things we want from every client. When your client says, "Oh my God, I can't believe that we just did this because of this," you have no idea. That just makes my day. That's what I live for. That's what I work for. I'm wondering, I'd love to capture this on LinkedIn. If I put together kind of a synopsis of what I just heard you say, and send that over. Would you be willing to recommend me on LinkedIn? And then you can use what I put together. You can write your own, and half the time they use it, quarter of the time they modify it and use it. The other, they rewrite their own. But you need to capture it in the moment, and you need to have the ask.
Even the dog wanted to leave the room. I've already profited from this conversation because about 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with one of the members of this group, and I gave her some coaching, and she wrote to me last week saying, thank you so much for that tip. I'm paraphrasing, but thank you so much for that tip. I did what you suggested, and I closed my first deal with my new company, a $2 million account. And I wrote to her and said, would you mind if I use that? And she goes, absolutely. But I didn't say, would you please put that into a recommendation on LinkedIn, which you know who you are. I will be writing to you later if I don't get one from you today. So Thank you, Brynne, for that. So I interrupted you though. So you've got your profile, you've got your recommendations. How do we take that to the next step with somebody who we want to work with?
Yeah. So this is where it gets fun, right? So now.
Look, Melissa just said that would be me. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Melissa.
Yay, Melissa. You can start working on that as soon as we're done. Or Jeff will write it and send it to you and you can tweak it, which would probably benefit Jeff more if he can write it in his own words, unless, whatever, because you'll figure it out. All right. So a core of what we teach is around something called social proximity. This was originally coined by Alex Hisaka, I believe, at LinkedIn. At least it was the first time I saw this from I think maybe 2014 or 2015. And I went, oh my God, this is it. So social proximity. When we think of proximity, we think about who are people within a couple of miles of our house, our office. Social proximity are how are the people connected to us? What are the pathways to get to our stakeholders and decision makers and influencers? So what does that look like? We get to this company. We want ABC Company. There are 750 employees at ABC Company. I cannot go page by page to figure out who they are. It's tough. So we go to the LinkedIn company page. We click through their connections. Our social proximity that is of value to us are our first degree connections and our second degree connections. So there are really two levels of people that I care about. And then there's a third that's a little colder, but the decision maker and someone that can influence the decision maker. Those are the two folks. It might be 8 people. There might be 8 or 10 influencers inside of an organization. And there may even be a couple of decision makers. But I want to really focus on mapping out the titles of those people. So I can ultimately find them through LinkedIn by title. So social proximity. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to click through to those people in the company, and I'm going to click my first degree connection. So my 750 comes down to 4. I have 4 first degree connections, and I look through these and I'm like, none of them are influencers. None of them are decision makers. They're going to go on like the sideline as all else fails. I'm going to use that to get through, but it'll take me a while to get up the chain. So we're going to table those 4 people. And now I'm going to look at the second degree connections. And now I have 91. Okay. So I do 91. I want to bring that down, and I go down into my search, and you can do this in the free. And I use what we call Boolean search or search string for the 5 titles that I'm looking for. So for me, it would be, VP or director of marketing or sales are probably where I'm headed in. So I build that out, and my 91 becomes 7. And now I look at, so these are 7 decision makers or influencers that I want to get in front of. And I have a shared connection with each of them, at least one. So now I go, okay, I'm going to start with VP of sales, the highest on the rung of these people that came up. And I look and I see I have 5 shared connections. And look, one of those shared connections is one of those 4 that was inside that company. So maybe I'm going to go back and revisit that. But another one is a client that really likes me. And another one is somebody that I network with at BNI, right? Okay, fabulous. I'm going to now go to my highest relationship or my strongest relationship. And I'm going to reach out and I'll say, hey, Jeff, I see you know Beth over at ABC Company. I'm trying to get in touch with her and I'm wondering how well do you know her? And would you be open to jumping on a quick, like 6-minute call with me to give me a little bit of insight before I reach out? Great. Jeff, thanks so much for taking my call. How do you know Beth? Oh my gosh, she's my buddy. I know her from wonderful. Well, this is why I'm reaching out. Do you think it makes sense for me to talk to her? And you go, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your insights. When I reach out, can I mention we had this call? You'll say, yeah, of course. Hey, Beth, Jeff and I were chatting the other day. Your name came up in our conversation. And after I told him a little bit about what I do, he thought it made sense for me to reach out and introduce myself. Let's connect and set up a call. 50% of those convert to conversation.
You would not ask Beth to make the introduction for you?
Mm-mm. I used to. And I'll tell you, if I have a strong networking relationship where we are making introductions, we're both making them on each other's behalf, absolutely every time. And if you bought my original book, actually even my book out there now is talking about asking for the introduction. But here's what we found. Most of them didn't happen. And if they did, they didn't happen in the way that we wanted them to happen, or they took weeks to happen. And then we've made the other person who's not networking with me, right? Like this is just in an uncomfortable position and it was awkward. So we took control of the sale back.
Got it. Okay.
And although it's not exactly the same success, because we have control, because we're doing it faster, so maybe 50% of those will convert and maybe 60% converted before, but we can get to many more. Because I could actually say, I could reach out to you, Jeff, and say, you know what, I notice he's connected to Beth, but as long as I'm going to have this conversation, I'm going to look at the other 9 people he knows too. So maybe we have a 10-minute conversation. You go, yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, yes. And now I have 7 people that I can drop your name. So we've moved away, even though introductions was the cornerstone of everything I did for a decade, we've moved away from that unless it's a networking partnership to name dropping. We're having really overall, not just as much success. The numbers of calls that we're getting on are significantly higher and in a timely manner because we have not lost any control over the sales process. We don't have to wait for them to do something.
Yeah, and you're not really putting them out by saying, hey, please send them this email or reach out through LinkedIn and make the introduction. You're getting it done quicker and you're making it easier for them. I love that.
And you go back to the well without feeling guilty. Jeff, one more name. What do you think of this person? Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Great. So I have another question with regards to that, but Lizzie asked, how many years should we go back in listing experiences on our profile?
So if you're not in job seeking mode, very little matters. So this is what I say. If it adds credibility to what you do now, add it. If it doesn't matter. If you're in a business development or sales role, there's very little ageism if you're not looking to get hired. You have more ageism with younger people as an entrepreneur. And, if you're hiring someone to provide consulting or services, or people like experienced people, if they're looking to hire someone, they like younger people. That's the way it is. So if you're worried about, I have 30 years experience and they're going to know that I'm 60 years old or whatever that looks like, it's not going to hurt you in a business development role if you're consulting. It hurts, unfortunately, with finding a job.
It's funny you say that. I had a guy reach out to me a while back to become partners, and we actually became partners for 3 years. And he told me what he was looking to do, and I said, "This is great. I don't understand why you need me." And he was 32 at the time. He goes, "Because you've got gray hair, and people are going to listen to you." And look, there is something to be said for the voice of experience. I've been selling for I'm going into my 48th year. Next year I'll be 48 years in sales, and I've learned a couple of things in that time. And while a kid, who's 22 may want to work with somebody young, I like that my doctor's my age and has a lot of experience and knows what he's doing. That doesn't mean somebody who's younger doesn't have that experience, but there is something to be said for gray hair and years. So, Brynne, what do we do if we don't have any of those connections? how do we reach up? Let's say I want to get into Aramark, and I don't know that you know Aramark, and I actually work with them too. But let's say I want to work with Aramark. I don't know anybody there. I do my search. I'm not connected to anybody through them. Is there a way to reach out cold to somebody? Like if I'm looking to work with a company, like I'm doing a lot of coaching one-on-one with salespeople directly these days, and I'm actually loving it. But one of my favorite things to do is stand in front of an audience at a large organization like Aramark, and I'm going to go for a VP, EVP, or SVP of sales. So let's say I have no connections to those people. How do I reach out to them? Is there a way to do that?
So there's lots of ways. The one thing I'd say is pace it. Don't come across as a hungry salesperson because you can blow it very easily. So put a little plan for yourself together that could look something like, and customize this. I'm throwing out one little idea. Don't say, oh, I don't like it. It's fine. I'm just going to give you kind of conceptually. We want to look at the social proximity, if there's anything at all in common, even if it's not someone that we can use, and we want to build out our org chart. Who are all the people that we need to be connecting with? So one of the things, by the way, so Aramark is a Miller Hyman shop. So they use a lot of like gold sheets and green sheets. And so when I got hired there, which is now over 7 years ago, they handed me green sheets and yellow sheets and say, how can we use these with LinkedIn help us, right? Like that was part of what we did, which was interesting. So some of what I'm doing came from learning how to teach them. So give kudos to both of those. So we want to like build out that org chart. Who inside you? We've got our titles. We want to find out the titles. We want to see who's connected to whom potentially, and build out the chart of who we'd like to get in front of. There are a couple things we can do now. I'm going to give you one of many roads that we could travel. So the first one, let's say we're going to go in the engage first realm. So you can actually go to the activity of every single one of those. Let's say we've mapped out 9 people inside of Aramark that we want to get in front of. We can go to their activity, and I'll actually either create a bookmark or a folder on my desktop. You could do, if you have Sales Navigator, just do it in Sales Navigator, but you can drag and drop the link to all of their activities into one folder. Why do I want to do that? I'm like, okay, today I'm going to see who's active on Aramark. So I open up the folder, I select all, I open it, every tab opens up of all 9 people's activity feeds, and I go through and say, who's posting, who's posting, who's posting. Now I like on it, I read it. Read it, don't just like and comment. Pull out a comment. If you're not a commenter, find a quote that you really liked inside of the article and paste that. And follow them, don't connect yet. Follow them and just be on their radar for a week or two. In just engaging, and that's it. Don't ask for anything else. Parallel to that, start looking at what's happening with Aramark. You can do Google alerts to see if the Aramark's being mentioned, look at press releases, look at content that's on the website, look to see, are they winning awards, companies like that. I have awards all the time. The CEO got this, the one got, grab their own content when something pops up and say, Jeff, I've been following your content for a couple of weeks now. I really love the stuff that you're posting out. And when I saw this article that your CEO just won this award, it made me think I should get this in front of you. I'm not sure. Often people miss their own press. Congratulations on having such a success, being part of such a successful company. And I have a link to their own content. And that's how I start my relationship with them. That's one path. So you got to find what path is good for you, but you've got to sit back and have patience. You can't you can't have commission breath, right? Thank you, Larry Levine. You just really have to pace yourself and not get ahead of, don't put the cart before the horse, right? Like make sure that the horse is, solidified in there, and then let them reach back to you going, oh my gosh, thank you. That was so thoughtful. I didn't have a chance to see that. Thank you. I had no idea that we had that, or we did see it, but I really appreciate that you thought of me. And it's not so weird because you've now been engaging with them for a couple of times, and then you saw this and and it just, even though it's prescriptive, it's not feeling so much on the receiver side.
Right. And it's really the opposite of, I've had this conversation here on the Sales Pro Network with our friend Beth Granger more than once. It's the opposite of you connect, and the next thing you know is you've got a sales pitch from somebody. I get these all day long, from people, I help coaches, and I accept their connection. And the next thing you know, I'd love to talk to you about how I help coaches and help you get 10,000 clients in the next 20 minutes with zero investment on your part. Thank you so much. Just stop slapping me in the face. Be a little more subtle. So I like that relationship building idea, and I love the idea of sending them their own stuff. I think that's brilliant. So once we've got that relationship going, we've followed them, we've sent them some information. How do we turn the conversation into, I'd really love to work with you without being such a slap in the face?
So, there's a lot of different steps. And again, this is a generalization, like lowest common denominator kind of thing. But when we work with clients, we really kind of tailor it to their situation. But we'll set. So now we're having a conversation. Hey, Jeff, I noticed you're a coach. We recently wrote a blog post on 10 ways coaches can grow their business faster. Let me know if you're interested. I'll send you a link. Then let it sit. Don't send the link every time. Sometimes I do, but don't send it. Let them respond with, oh, that would be interesting. Thank you. If I send the link, it'll feel very pitchy. Now, if they reach out to me, I will send a link faster. Right? So if you connect with me and say, hey, Brynne, saw your content, would love to connect. Now I'll send information. You made the first move. But if I'm making the first move, I'm asking you if you want the link. I'm saying, hey, we have this great video that came out. I have a webinar coming up in a week that you might find helpful on this, and this. If you're interested, let me know. I'll send you the link. Why? The fact that I don't send you the link right away. And by the way, I learned this. This isn't my own even. I learned this from Andy Foote. I don't know if you know who Andy Foote is. He's another LinkedIn expert. Because I was sending links every single time. And he kind of woke me up going, pull back even more. And I went, oh, brilliant, Andy. I'm going to take that. So now I give him all the credit. If I'm reaching out to them, they never heard of me. I've got to slow this down. But it's a qualifier. Yeah, I would be interested in that. If they're not, there are many more people that we can go after, right? We can, and then later on, we can tickler it for a little bit and, come back. But I'm blown away by how many more people respond to, oh, that would be great, thanks, than the people that click through the link that I would have originally sent. And now they're asking for it. So they're more likely to come to the webinar, right?
So are we always waiting for them to say, hey, you know what, I'd like to talk to you about potentially doing business? Or do we ever say, I'd really love to have a chat with you about the possibility of us working together?
So, yeah, I will convert to, if there's a conversation, based on what I'm hearing from you or based on what I'm seeing, I have some insights I'd love to share with you. If you're open, let me know, we can set up and tell them on what. So I don't ever say, I want to share how I can help you from how you can buy from me. And I run an insights call that's a mini discovery call. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. I close for the sales call. But my first call is 100% insights, even if we don't work together. So, and the conversation is like, Jeff, thanks so much for jumping on the call today. I'm really looking forward to learning more. I did some peeking around on LinkedIn and I saw some things that got some ideas for you. But before I jump into my agenda, when you scheduled this call, was there anything specific you were hoping we were going to cover? And then you're going to say yes or no, or yes, we're looking for LinkedIn help. Oh, great. Let's have a conversation. Or you're like, no, I was really intrigued by this, or Joe said I should take your call, so I'm happy to jump on. So I said, oh, great. Well, I've got lots of insights around LinkedIn and ways that it can help you and your team grow your business. But so that it's really relevant to you, would it be okay if I ask you a couple of questions? Sure. Question number one, you give me an answer, I provide an insight. Question number 2, no more than 3. We go through 3. I provide an insight. Every one of them are going to be jaw-dropping. Oh my gosh, I am prepared, because even though they think they're different, they're not. And almost every single question, answer, insight is the same. It's very rarely different. And if it is, it's only by like 3 degrees, right? So I'm prepared. I know my jaw-dropping, oh my gosh, life-changing, I want to work with you insights. At the end of that, I recap the 3 insights. And then I say, you know, Jeff, this reminds me a lot of a client I worked with about 7 months ago. Can I share with you a little bit about the challenges they were going through and what we did? And they go, yes, please. And that's how I close it. I get permission to switch from an insights call to a sales call. So
first of all, very Sandler-esque, very, I'm not even sure if we should be speaking, but blah, blah, blah. And I laughed also because I finally found something that I would disagree with. I never, ever ask permission to ask questions. May I ask you a few questions? I would say, you know what I think makes sense if I ask you a few questions. I never, ever.
I used to do that.
The typical salesperson, in my opinion, typically is bowing down to the almighty prospect. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And may I please ask some questions? And I say that lowers you. I don't want the prospect to be up here and me to be down here. If anything, I'd rather the reverse is true, but at least I want them to respect me and be on an even keel. So I never ask permission. I don't thank people for their time. I wait for them to thank me for my time. I do say things like, I'm glad we could invest some time together, but it's never, ever thank you for your time. So finally, something that I slightly
so I used to do that. And maybe it's my personality, but they would feel like I bait and switched them. Because I did not set it up as a discovery call or a sales call. I set it up as I'm here to provide value for you. That, because I used to, I haven't done this in a long time, but I used to do a lot of post-mortem when I couldn't convert. So I'd reach out back to them and say, I really appreciate, you giving me the 15 minutes. Clearly there wasn't a fit. I'm always trying to improve. Can I ask you, what were you feeling during this call? Because people buy on emotion, right? And what I heard on a consistent basis was, I thought we were getting on a call where you were going to share insights with me, but it turned out you were trying to sell me. And this was years ago. And I went, okay, I need to adjust this. So I went from that assumptive to, because I needed them to feel like I was there to serve them.
Got it.
And so because I came from I moved from, you're lucky to have a call with me, right? And even though sometimes I feel that way, that is not what I want to put out there. What I want to put out there is, this is your 15 minutes. My job is to serve you. They relax more. They feel like, oh, she's not going to sell me. They're more apt, from my experience, and again, it's personality too, from my experience, to answer the questions when they've given me permission to ask them, instead of having their back up against the wall, like, discovery, I know what she's doing. So I made that switch very intentionally, but a lot of it has to do with what works for you. So I don't think there's a right or wrong necessarily. Maybe you do, but I think as long as it gives you the outcome that you're looking for, it's wrong if it's not working.
Of course. And by the way, I still come from the attitude, which I would never put out to them, but you are lucky that you've gotten on a call with me today. And I think I misheard. I would never say that at the beginning of the call. I thought there was a little bit of prelude. And then it's like, based on what you just said, I think it might be a smart idea if I ask you a few questions. Lee said, by the way, lesson learned, he lost a $40,000 sale due to the client being able to sense my hunger. She literally told me I was just after money, which was true at the time, and he never made that mistake again. I know you can't go the whole hour. Is there a best way to get client referrals using LinkedIn?
Ask, go mine their connections and say, can I run these names by you? And you can always, if it's appropriate, you can ask for an introduction. I'm not saying don't, but for us, the name dropping has been just so much more successful long-term. But it's mine their connections and ask how well do you know them? I mean, just have a conversation about the list. Can I go through a list with you?
Is that what you call the magic name drop strategy?
Yes.
Got it. Are there any real mistakes that people usually make on LinkedIn that they should avoid?
Connect and pitch, connect and forget. There are a lot of black holes that you can go down that are not productive. Put a little post-it note, if you're doing social selling, a little post-it note on your computer that says, my goal is more conversations, or even just the word conversations, IRL, in real life conversations, right? And make sure everything you're doing is leading to that. Because if you're in sales, you could do hours of social selling activity. I heard, activity leads to conversations. Not all activity leads to conversations. Only the right. I mean, you can like and engage all day long, never with the wrong people or the wrong conversations, and never convert to conversations. So you've got to make sure that you've got a plan in place, and that it's leading, that everything you're doing is leading towards your goal. You are either leading toward your goal or against your goal. So whatever activity you're looking at, going, is this leading me in the right direction, the wrong direction? Wrong direction, switch directions. So the key, you've got to know what you want to get out of it, have a plan to get there, and keep reevaluating. Have your recalculating GPS in your brain.
Got it. And you mentioned your latest book, but I don't think you mentioned the title. What's the title of your latest book?
So it's not my latest book. I've had many books. I'm working on my latest book, but it's the LinkedIn Sales Playbook, A Tactical Guide to Social Selling. It's still pretty good, and there's really good videos that come along, and the videos are newer. The book is from 2017, but the videos that come with it are phenomenal. So it's like you buy a book, you get e-learning.
Got it. Okay. And one more question before we wrap up. I used to be very active in LinkedIn groups, and I found that they became less and less effective. What's your take on the groups these days?
They're so broken. Yeah. And actually, Beth and I were part of the LinkedIn group tour, where we went into the Empire State Building, and they fed us food and gave us cookies that had LinkedIn on them, and said, okay, guys, tell us about groups. What do you want? What do you love? What do you need? And I think there might have been 40 or 50 people in that room, maybe more. And we gave them some amazing, amazing feedback. And it was probably 2.5, 3 years ago. And very little, if any, was implemented. So it's very disappointing. And my first book had an entire chapter on groups. My second book had 2 pages on groups, and my 2017 book has 0 mention of groups.
Got it. Perfect. So I could easily talk to you all day about this stuff. You're fascinating. And I truly love your generosity. I mean, if you guys are not following Brynne on LinkedIn right now, please go do it immediately. She's among the most generous people I've ever seen. And every time I read something about her, why is she giving this away? And thank God she is, because I learned so much. Just like our friend Beth Granger, very generous, but you're like stunningly generous. So thank you for your time today. Can you just tell people briefly what services do you provide for salespeople? How do they get in touch with you if they're interested? Give yourself a little plug here, please.
So the first thing I'd say is I have a complimentary webinar, linkedinwebinar.com. Go check that out. It's about converting to conversations. So services, I mean, we have 3 major services. So one is sales training for any team. So it's LinkedIn sales training only, not your sales training. LinkedIn only. Yeah, no, it's all, but it's LinkedIn sales training. It's not social media training. So it's LinkedIn training for sales teams. And we have a $29 a month membership, which gives you full-on e-learning suite and group coaching and office hours and lots of stuff, $29 a month. You can go to socialsaleslink.com and sign up. It's so easy. And we have public classes that right now are running $297 for 4-week classes for entrepreneurs and individual sales folks. That's what we do.
Socialsaleslink.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as my grandmother would say, such a deal with this pricing.
Such a deal. Well, it's really, we want to make sure that we're serving people that, that are doing this independently, that their company isn't investing in them. But it's great. there's so much value, and we love it, and it's a community. And the other thing is, many of our members are my competitors, which sounds so weird. We welcome everyone, and we all help each other. So other members help other members. We have Judy Hayes, who's also a New Yorker, who's part of our group, and we have Hannah Tai, right? And so all these other social sellers are part of the community, and I'm like, enjoy. You get business from it, great. It's just high tide rises all boats.
I completely agree, and thank you so much for your generosity today. I truly could talk to you for hours and hours, and I know that the membership would absolutely be loving every second of it. I know you've got to run, so I'm going to finish up here. Thank you, Brynne Tillman.
Thank you so much. I really had fun.
And please remember, everybody, that sales is a game of making things happen. Go out there and make sales happen. Bye, everyone.